Maybe this is not on.
Oh.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Okay. Should be on now.
Yeah. Hello? Hello? Doesn't seem. Hello?
Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for it to load.
Hello? 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 Where am I? Okay.
There you are. You are there.
I'm
And here as well.
Okay. Thank you. So welcome everyone, and again good evening. And again, we start as usual with a short breathing exercise, followed by generating good intention moving here. Again, try to make yourself comfortable, relax. And try to keep your back straight. It always helps to be more alert, awake. And let go of any tension, stiffness in your body and mind. And just take in and out your breath normally. And keep your mind or attention to the breath, watching it mindfully. Then we can try to contemplate. As long as our mind is not free from the selfish attitude and all the afflictive emotions, such as anger, strong desire, jealousy, pride, ignorance, and so forth. We can never find true, lasting inner peace and joy. Regardless of how good the external conditions are. We will always find something to be unhappy about. We will always find something that disturbs our mind. On the other hand, if we don't have those disturbing negative emotions, or not so much of them, very little, then even external conditions are not so great. One can still find lasting inner peace, joy, and happiness. One can keep our mind calm, peaceful, and not being disturbed by the external conditions or changes in external conditions. Therefore, it's quite clear inner peace, joy, and happiness is something that need to come from within. That need to be developed within our own mind. It cannot be produced by external things. Therefore, it is so important to work with our own mind so we can reduce those disturbing negative emotions and overcome them. Also, when our own mind is calm, peaceful, joyful, we harm others less, and we are able to help others more. On the other hand, when our mind is disturbed, bothered by one of those disturbing negative emotions, not only we are unable to help others, but we tend to hurt and harm others more. Therefore, training our mind through practice meditations becomes so crucial, important. For your own peace, happiness, for the happiness of others. And in order to practice, we need to be reminded of importance of the practice. We need to learn how to practice properly. Therefore, I'm going to listen. Not only listen, but trying to integrate as much as possible whatever we learn. And may I ask coming together to listen, to engage in discussion, reflection, contemplations. May all of these become cause and conditions to actualize our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be most benefit and help to all sentient beings. Okay.
We'll start with a praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. We'll do that 3 times. To the founder,
The endowed transcendent destroyer,
the
the
one
one
gone
gone
beyond,
beyond, the holy destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings detained, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer,
The
the glorious
conqueror,
conqueror,
the
the superior
superior
from the Shakyamuni plane, let us straight make offerings and go for refuge.
to
To
the
the
founder,
founder of the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to detained, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the superior from the Shakyamuni, let us straight make offerings and go for refuge.
to the
To the
founder,
founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, to God and knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to attain, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the superior of the Shakyamuni, and prostrate make offerings and go for refuge.
Now we'll do the short mandala. This ground,
anointed with perfumes, stones, flowers, adorn the long mirror, for continents, the sun and the moon, and messengers that rule the hill and operate,
may
all living beings enjoy its viewing. Idam Guru Lanam Mandala Glamira Tamila.
now taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. We'll do it once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go
I go
for
for
refuge
refuge until I am enlightened, to live in the Dharma sufficient. and the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become Buddha in our faith and all sentient beings. Nam Chodam Samgin Chonam La Dam Shubhatu Dami Kansushi Dam Chudevagi Besonam Yit Dova Kancher Samgin Dugasho Samgin Chodam Samgin Chonam La Dam Shubhatu Dami Kansushi Dagi children gave sonagi, Rova venture sangi do for show.
So today's topic subject is about Bardo in Tibetan. Par means at the middle, intermediate stage. And in Buddhism, there is idea of rebirth after you die. And within the death and the next rebirth, there is this intermediate stage. And the being of that intermediate stage is the Bardo beings. And Bardo, we'll talk, is a little bit like spirit, you know. Of course, there are many different kinds of spirit, you know, different beings, you know. And just like human beings, other beings, non-human beings, you know, good ones, bad ones. Or sometimes they, just like us, sometimes they can be disturbed by conditions. They can be harmful. Sometimes they can be peaceful, calm, helpful. So again, you know. So there is in Buddhism, there is explanations of when we die, you know, first our perceptions, sense perceptions cease, you know. We cannot see, we cannot hear, we cannot taste, cannot feel. Slowly, those senses, you know, the consciousness that's related with those senses, sense perception, kind of started to stop functioning or cease. And then growth level of the mind also cease, you know. And then slowly, there's a concept of subtle mind, you know. Once the gross mind ceases, then subtle mind, known as the mind of white appearance, red appearance, dark appearance, that also started to cease. And then, you know, what we call clear light mind is more subtle mind manifest, and that is the only mind that is at that time, you know, that the being experience or manifest the clear light mind. And meditators, more advanced meditators, has those ability to be in that meditation with that more subtle mind, clear light mind, to be able to use that. Ordinary beings, you go through that whole process, but you are not able to use that mind for your meditations. A lot of us, maybe we are not even aware of that. We just go through those procession, but not being able to recognize, not being able to aware. And even you recognize aware, maybe you are unable to use for meditations because we have not trained ourselves. But more highly meditators who have kind of, have experience in those meditation, then they can use those for meditations. And that mind is supposed to be a very powerful mind because there's no distractions. Because distraction are growth mind, and all this growth mind we have many different distractions. Sense, we see things that distract us. We hear things, it distracts our mind. We smell, it distracts our mind. We started to taste, feel something. Maybe it's too hot, too cold, different feeling in our body, sensations that distract our mind. Also in our mind, and different thoughts, different ideas, different feelings arises, and all of those distract our mind. So, there's a lot of distractions. But in that clear light mind, all this growth might have ceased, so there's no distractions. There's no distractions. So it's very powerful mind if someone can use that meditations. And some advanced meditators use that. And to be so clinically, when that growth mind ceases, then clinically is declared death. When there's no more function of the growth mind, then there's no more function of your heart and the brain. Clinically, it's declared dead. From Buddhist point of view, especially from Vajrayana, Buddhist point of view, is still the being might not be dead, because they still could be in that clear light mind, the subtle mind. And if they are in that subtle mind, still they possess, they still have the mind. The mind is not separated, so still they are alive. Clinically they are dead, but technically they are not dead. And therefore we have many stories, even in recent time, meditator being in that meditation state. In Tibetan we call tuktam. In that state for 20 days, in just recent time, some of them 10 days, some of them 2 weeks, some of them 1 week, 3 days, 4 days, some of them. Most in recent time is like 20 days.
How is this? How do we know this?
Yeah, I'm coming there.
Okay.
I'm coming there. When someone in that kind of meditation state, and when there's clear light mind, when the mind has not left, even without using any medical kind of things, their body is still very, they do not decay. Okay? Like one Lama teachers who died in South India, I think 21 days, 20 days, So in South India, it's very humid, very hot. But, for those 20 days, there's no decaying, no smell, nothing, no decaying. When you chew, the body still is very, what you call, flexible like this, There is a heat in your chest, around your chest, So there's no sign of, the moment the conscious, that more subtle conscious leap, then the body starts to decay, So those are some, signs that we look for, I don't know, sometime in Google, when you try to YouTube, Googles, sometimes you find, sometimes you cannot find, sometimes it's hard to know. And there is also document of one teacher, Rinpoche, passing in New Zealand. and it is documented by one of the TV news channel. And this guy, the journalist, who visits the body a few times, check it. He talk with doctors, what are the possibility of that? He talk with people who manage the dead bodies. Have he seen anything like that? And what are the possible? All this is interesting. Like, and so again, in terms of documented visually in that kind of that, I've seen that one time. And sometimes when I check again, sometimes I find it. Sometimes it's hard to find it. Some of them you found before. Sometimes I don't know if you try to see. That might be another interesting. Also, Dalai Lama wanted the science doctor to do more, more investigation on that issues, and there have been some, when people are dying, those meditators, when they come with all mission and doing, they have done some over the years, but of course it is hard to find such meditator all the times. Sometimes there is a meditator, then there is no one who can quickly come with all this e-comment and do that. At the very beginning, the student will not allow. Family student will not allow to do that, but Dalai Lama encouraged them to allow to do that, because there can be a good cause to learn more about what is happening and what is possible. So since Dalai Lama encouraged to all the teachers, the students and family to allow, so nowadays a lot of times they allow, and so there have been quite some cases where they have, and of course from the science they are still kind of still trying to understand that phenomena, what is happening. They cannot really explain exactly what is happening, but they do notice there's something unusual is happening. That part they know. That part they know there is something unusual is happening, but at the same time they cannot say exactly. But from the Buddhist point of view, as I know, Vajrayana Buddhist point of view, they call about that took them and someone being in the clear light meditations. So, and that can last, from few days to weeks, months, some says even years. Of course, in our recent time, I'm not aware of that someone who has for that, but the maximum in recent time that I'm aware is like over 20 days, the most. And there are certain signs of checking, one sign when the body decay smell is very clear. Most easy sign is the body started decaying smell. That means the consciousness has left the subtle mind of what. That is easy. But sometimes even before it smell and decay, there are certain signs. When the consciousness left, sometimes there is a blood coming from the nose. It's a sign that subtle consciousness left. Another signs in this around the sense organ, there is liquid coming from that. Again, that is another sign that consciousness left. Another sign is the check for the heat around your chest. Even though it's cold everywhere, your feet, everything is very cold, but still in your heat, your chest, there can be heat. And that is another way of chasing. And so when the consciousness leaves, even that become cold then, even that area become cold. So those are some way of investigating, analyzing. Traditionally in Tibet, unless the body starts decay really and smell, they try to keep 3 days, even whether they're meditating or not, because we never know who is meditating, who is not meditating. He or she might seem very not a great meditator, but he or she might be a great meditator. Someone might seem good meditator, but he or she might be not good meditator, you know. So therefore, they always, if possible, not disturb the body for 3 days, you know. And if the sign is still there, then they will live as long as possible, you know, weeks, months, you know. So giving the opportunity for that person who's dying, them to die peacefully without disturbing, and to be able to, if they are meditating, so they're meditating, so you don't want to disturb, you know, so not doing any kind of other violent kind of movements, you know. So that is one. So those are some signs. Recently, I was talking with one of my brother, you know, in Nepal, and he said he remembered in our village in the old times when someone died, they don't do any in the Kathmandu, but like in the village, they used to put a small butter here,
Mm.
you know, and if the heat is there, the butter keep on melting, you know, and then when the heat finish, then it doesn't melt. That's one. He said he saw that, you know, but a lot of time they will check the heat around here, you know. So those are some kind of way to see whether that consciousness left. And when that subtle consciousness left, you know, the moment that subtle consciousness left, that very moment simultaneously, then the part of the intermediate stage being, the part of being simultaneously, you know, is being kind of born. Okay. Yeah.
A number of questions.
Hmm.
So is it considered that when the Dalai Lama dies, this is going to be the situation that the subtle consciousness will remain there for a length of time because he's such a good meditator?
It depends, you know. Some of the enlightened beings, they don't have to be in that meditative state to become more enlightened because they have achieved enlightenment. But someone who hasn't achieved high level of meditations, and then they want to get higher, and this is one of the great opportunity for them to use this special occasions at that time. But someone who is already highly enlightened, then those are not required. They are already enlightened. So, you know, because meditation is just a technique, you know, to have those spiritual experience, higher realizations, enlightened realizations. So again, it depends, you know. Practitioners, some might use it, some might already being enlightened before that. Some are not enlightened, and so they can at that point they can meditate to become more enlightened, you know. So again, you know, that is not necessarily the what you call evaluation. Someone's good meditator or not. Okay. No, you cannot evaluate someone is great enlightened, less enlightened, great meditator or not meditator, only based on that. So who knows that Lama choose to stay in that meditative state or choose not to do that, you know, again, for different reasons, you know, you never know what they intend to do, not do. So anyway, that is then, yeah, then the part of being, you know, immediately, simultaneously, the consciousness, the moment consciousness leave the body from that very moment, the part of being, you know, the intermediate stage being is being born. And that part of beings is you know, constantly looking for the next rebirth,
Mhm.
in the search of next rebirth, you know. Until they find a rebirth in one of the Ksitigarbhas, you know. Of course, not all the part of being have the control over their choose where they want to be born. Highly more enlightened practitioners, meditators, or beings can make, even before the death, they can make where they want to come. They have this ability, that's high level bodhisattvas and others beings, you know, they can choose, you know, which country to come, which planet to come, which country to come, you know, in which family they want to come, you know, they can choose. But for most of the ordinary beings, it depends on the wind of your karma, you know. Wherever your karma blow strong. But in some of them, it's like, you know, they're searching for the, you know, and then while they're searching for the next rebirth, then, you know, due to the certain strong karma, then they might be drawn to a certain direction where then they take the rebirth. And the part of beings, you know, are, they have body and the mind, of course, body, but they don't have a body like us, gross body. They have very light body, you know. So very light body, you know. The wind body is known as wind body, you know, light body. But with all the, you know, sense faculties and all the limbs and everything, you know, sense faculty, they see, they hear, they taste, you know, they smell and all of that, you know, and in human beings, you know, and also other beings, you know, we develop those sense faculties slowly over the times in the mother's womb, you know, also our limbs and so forth, slowly, our brain and our organ and our limbs slowly should develop gradually. But in part of being, they all come ready-made. It's like some animal, the moment they are born, they are able to walk, you know. We human beings doesn't do that. And there are some animals who cannot do that, but there are some animals, the moment they are born, they are able to walk. And similarly, these part of beings, you know, they are able to have all these senses together simultaneously. They are born with that, all of them, immediately. But no, they are not like ours, which is a growth. Okay. And because they're like a wind and the light, you know, so they can, it is mentioned, they can travel. The moment they have thought of wanting to travel, then they can be there because it's not like physical, you know, and all this cannot obstruct them. The walls and those physical mountain, it cannot, because again, they don't have that. So, and their birth is known as, you know, miraculous birth. In Buddhism, they talk about four kinds of birth. One by womb, through womb, like human beings, many animals, you know. Some through the eggs, you know, many birds, many animals. Some through the heat, some of the insects, you know, through the heat. And then some what we call miracles, meaning, neither from the mother's womb, neither from the egg, neither from the heat, but they are just born like that. So part of being are one of those. They are not like born with the mother's womb, nor from egg, nor from heat, but the moment this consciousness leave the body, that very moment, that part of being is be born in that way. So they are known as, in Tibetan, the word is, Zuge. Zu means in direct translation is miracle, miraculous. So it's like miraculous birth. Basically, it's, you have birth that immediately in that way. And with such birth and with that kind of light body, then, one is traveling everywhere, and there is also in some, it is mentioning they have a lot of visions, sometimes they see very terrifying things, and sometimes, of course, they see something good, depending on also your karma, karma of the part of beings. Sometimes they can have terrifying image or visions or seeings, as though, like earthquake, as though is, all that kind of very terrifying things. And sometimes they can see very nice, very beautiful, very good as well. They could have different visions, different, and so this is, someone who have trained themselves in such time, if you know about emptiness, and to be able to see everything as an illusion, and so you are able to remind yourself everything that I'm seeing is just like illusions. There's nothing real. So they don't get so fearful about that. And everything, good thing they see, they are able to remind themselves everything like illusion, so they don't get so attached to that. Even partly they are able to manage that because of the humility of their practice when they are still alive. But if you don't have those practice, then when you're in Bardo, someone can be very fearful sometimes, depending on if you have that kind of visions, then someone can be very terrifying, fearful, and all of that. And so again, the teaching says, while we're still alive, we learn to meditate, contemplate, how every appearance, good, bad, neutral, whatever appearance that appear in our mind, any time to remind ourselves there's no inherent existence, good, bad, or neutral by itself, even though there's that appearance, reminding that all of them are like illusions, like a dream state, like a mirage, and therefore not totally being misled by the appearance. And by that, then you don't get so fearful, you don't get so angry, and you don't get so attached due to different appearances. And so when you do that practice while you are still alive, with that humility and accustomed to that meditation aware, even in Bardo, one can able to do that practice. And by being able to do practice, then again, the being is not so negatively bad, influenced by those appearances, And one of the examples that give of such kind of light body, is they give, when you go to sleep, then after sleep, you have the dream state. And during the dream state, then in your dream, you have this body flying sometime, you're flying like a bird. Have you any dream that, sometimes someone can dream being chased by something, you have this dream of that. So that is the dream body that is being chased or flying, It's not really kind of solid body like this body, but it's a dream state bodies, very light in that is similarly like that. And then when you come out of the state of the dream and when you are actually awake, then you have this gross body, and so that's it's similar like that, that the body in the part or intermediate stage is similar like that is and again, because it is not a gross body like this, even a dream, people who learn how to control the dream, then they are able to fly, they can direct where they want to do, they have some control in that. They are able to control, they want to fly more, they want to fly less, they want to go higher, and they are able to do in their dreams, there are certain, so again, and they are able to do that because it's not limited, constructed by such our body, physical solid bodies, and so it's similar like that, the part of beings, they talk about that, so that is one of the examples they give. So it says, they have all the sense faculties, with human beings or other animals. We can be born with defect of one of those sense faculties. Someone born with blindness, someone born with not being able to hear. I don't know whether there is any situation where, I guess there is, where someone unable to smell, unable to taste, unable to feel those senses, the five senses. So in a lot of, birds, human, also animals and others, it's possible that, but in part of, they are with all five senses intact. Notice those, what you call, concrete like our, but still, that, and they have all the forms complete from the very beginning because their birth is, as mentioned, kind of miraculous birth. And then in terms of, so if I'm going to be born as an animal, then I take the intermediate stage of the part of, and then next is the animals. If my karma is strong to become a human being, to take a reincarnated human beings, when after I die, then I human part of, and then next is the human rebirth. That is general kind of explanations. But again, within the Buddhist, there seems to be two different explanations. According to, Abhidhammakosha, Abhidhammakosha is one very well-known Buddhist scriptures, written by one of the early Indian master, Vasubandhu, and he's known for, known as, holding the tenets of, what we call, Pabhasika, generally known as the lower tenets. So in his scripture, he explained, once you have taken, let's say, after my death, I have the part of animal, then I cannot change that. The next birth will be animals. If after death, I have the part of human beings, then I cannot change. Then my rebirth will be human beings. But according to the higher tenets of the Buddhists, such as Asanga was his own brother. And one follow the tenets of Mahayana and one tenet and also later Vasubandhu also followed his father, his brother. Also, he followed at the very beginning of his life. He argued a lot of the concept of the Mahayana tenets, but later part of his life, he embraced and he himself became changed. But this was written earlier in his earlier. But in Asanga, the Mahayana tenets, then they say even you have after death, you have taken let's say Bardo being of animals, but you can still change that and change that Bardo and still take as a human beings. So it is not like kind of once you have taken the Bardo, one of the beings of 6 realms, it doesn't mean you have definite to take that rebirth. So in that, then in this, so let's say, at the time of death, my negative karma was very strong, or my mind was so disturbed, at that time I was so upset and angry, and I died with such a lot of negative feelings and emotions and all this, that effect. And so then my karma, negative karma manifested more strongly in that, and thereby I'm going to have one of the lower rebirths, such as animals. And thereby I take the form of, I have this Bardo state of animal. Okay. But then within that Bardo, through the practice of that Bardo itself, maybe in that moment before he died, he or she lost mind and acts and anger, but in Bardo, because some of their previous familiarity and practice, maybe they might be able to practice, have a virtuous thought, have a compassion or other virtuous thought. Thereby, again, that can change. And from the Bardo being lower realm to Bardo of higher rebirth, and then to have a higher rebirth such as human beings. Or their karma can influence to some level by the beings through their practice, prayers, different practice, virtues, and dedicating for that beings, out of beings. And it is mentioned, especially if you have stronger connection with that being, you can influence more. Who can influence more? People who have strong karmic connections and beings who have higher level of realizations, because of your higher level of realizations, your prayers, your practice, your dedications have more power to change and affect things. Also, even if you don't have very high level of realization and high level of enlightened, but you have a strong karmic connection, because of that strong karmic connections, again, by your virtuous deeds, whatever form of practice, meditating, practicing generosities, practicing, different form of virtues, and then, dedicating for the well-being of that part of beings and their better futures. With that, then it can affect, and by affecting the part of beings, karma, and then they can, of course, there need to be something from their side too, but also we can contribute toward that. One, we can contribute towards in the change of that, but it cannot be just by yourself, there need to be also something from the part of beings, and then your contributions, and then that can change, and thereby, before this part of beings has animal Bardo, to be born as an animal, therefore they have animal Bardo. Now, through such practice, whether by the Bardo being himself or through the dedication and prayer from the others. And then that change a little bit in them, and then they are able to transform, and therefore they die as a part of beings or animal, and they're born as part of beings of human beings, and then next is the human rebirth. So it can be changed, especially from the minor point, even Bardo, it is possible to change that. And that is why, when someone passes away, they try to do, their families, friends and others, try to do virtues and, different requesting or doing themselves or requesting prayers, doing other form of, making offerings to holy objects, practicing generosity to those who are in the needs, and, different practices, and then dedicating for them. That is the concept, is that through that you contribute towards the change in the karma of that being. So that is so the part of beings, can find the next rebirth. But if not long ago after the part of beings, or it might take 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 1 week to find the rebirth, depending on their time. If they cannot find rebirth within the 1 week, then the part of being has a small death. They're called small death. The part of being dies and take another part of another part of beings. And for 1 week, so they die 7. If they don't find rebirth for 49 days, then they have 7 deaths within the Bardo. Are we clear? What it means, because it takes a human beings. I die and I cannot find the next rebirth, then again after 1 week I die. Again I cannot find rebirth, again I take another rebirth and again die. Something like the part of beings, after 1 week, if they cannot find the birth, the part of being die. They are also another beings. Okay? They are sentient beings. They also die. Are we clear? They are sentient beings. Bardo beings are sentient beings. Are we clear that?
Okay. They're sentient beings in terms of being able to see or perceive or use.
They have the
their
mind,
senses.
consciousness.
Consciousness. Okay.
They have
So-
consciousness. Anyone who has consciousness is sentient beings.
So the identity of the Bardo being that dies after 7 days, how does that inform the next Bardo being?
So again, if their karma change in that, then they could have a different Bardo. If their karma doesn't change in that, then they will have, they die and they will have similar rebirth.
So the Bardo being that dies after 7 days because they cannot find a host or that being still has karma that the next being that moves into the next being in terms of what
They actually carry the same karma if their karma hasn't changed. So they die and again they will have another part of body. And again they will search for 1 week. If they cannot find, they will die and again they will have another part of body. And again that goes until the 7th week, 49 days. Yes.
What kind of evidence is there that this Bardo even exists? That it happens? Where's the
Yeah.
evidence?
I don't know whether there is scientific evidence. There are so many things. There is not enough scientific evidence. We don't know whether there's another beings in another planet or not. But science is still very limited.
For me, that's not a problem. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like the knowledge about
Uh,
the Bardo, it's coming from the lamas and the Tibetan meditators.
not only from Tibetan meditator, this Abhidharma Kosha is Indian. And that is, and if you go to the sutra, you'll find also about Bardo about there in sutra too. So is, I think a lot of time, a lot of this knowledge, a lot of people think is made up by the Tibetan masters, because Buddhism had died in India for so many long years. Those scriptures kind of were burned down, Nalanda Monastery and all at one time, especially during the 12th, 13th centuries when the Turkish Mughal invaded India. And that's when they rampage, many Hindu temples, and especially a lot of Buddhist monastery temple. And that is when they burned down a lot of that. And that's when they lost most of those sources. And the Tibetans are those which they have already translated before. Most of them were translated between 7th century to 12th, 13th centuries. So of course there's also a lot of also in Chinese, because they translated even before the Tibetans. So those texts survive in Tibet, China, different translation. But many of those original, they were kind of lost. Not only they were lost, scripture lost, also they were not really, scholars, meditators. After all this lost, then they were gone. And so therefore now the sources you find is mostly in Tibetan and Chinese, and then also other maybe, others like Japanese and Korean, which are more again kind of coming from the Chinese sources, so mainly from that, then it feel a lot of people feel, now because the information studies survive mostly in Tibet and those areas. But as mentioned, Abhidharma Koshas, and if you go to the sutra, there is a sutra Sai Moshi. In Tibetan, it's called Sai Moshi, though, I don't know the translations of the Sanskrit in name of that, but in those are the sources you find in there, in terms of the sources of those informations.
So the ones who composed the text, who wrote the text, where did they get the information about the Bardo?
Some of them probably from the sutras, some of them their experiences. There are stories of.
I'm curious what the experiences were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many stories of people dying and coming back. And then some of them share the story of that. There are very few. There are some stories. In Tibet, there is even some opera based on that.
Opera?
Yeah. Opera, Tibetan opera. Based on stories of someone who died and gone for, I don't know, weeks, months, and then they came back.
How did they come back in the same body?
Yeah, they came back somebody, and then they were sharing their experiences.
So the body kind of woke up?
Yeah. Maybe like here now, maybe we talk about coma, I don't know, something like that, maybe.
Okay.
At that time, of course, there's no machine and coma, so they don't know. They don't say coma. I don't know exactly medical term that there might be. It could be coma, or I don't know. Of course, they were not supported by machine or anything, but like they died. And like, for example, like just like took them, they died, they just left the body for many days, weeks, and then they came back, and then they share. Of course, this is kind of rare, kind of. It doesn't happen very often, but there are, even in our time, there is one teachers, Geshe, and who I don't know the whole detail, but he is also known as that, who came back from the dead. They are that, and also there are stories of like Shariputra, Mongolianas, they're going into certain realms and seeing them, experiencing them, and then they report, so these are based on, at the very beginning, these are based on some of the experience of those beings who experience. And of course, later, then those, what they call, they were collected and put, and then later, some people, they don't have, for myself, I don't have experience myself, but I rely on those informations based on the experience shared by the others in the past, Yes.
Understand this in case I'm explaining to somebody who
Huh.
doesn't, they're not familiar. And so when I die, the karma, the merit and the negative karma, when my body stops and there's no more heat or whatever, then it's the Bardo. So the merit and the negative karma, that's kind of like, that's not the end, right? You're saying that in the Bardo things can go even better or not so good.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you can change between death and next rebirth in the Bardo stage. It can change.
And I think you said
As I said, there are two versions. According to Asanga, the Lord tenets of the Buddhism, they say they cannot change. But in the Mahayana tenets, they are saying it can be changed.
I think you were saying that if you have friends and others who are doing prayers while you're
Prayers,
in
other virtues, and then dedicating, sharing that karma, the virtue they have created for the well-being of that person, betterness of that, and that can change. That can affect and change also the karma of the Bardo, and thereby changing the next rebirth. Yes. Yes, please.
I'm curious on what kind of prayers that you, or a prayer, a simple prayer that it could say for a better rebirth.
Yeah.
And the other question would be like when they go, if it's after a week and they die in that state and they get reborn into the next part of the Bardo, does that painful or their consciousness or any of that they go? Are they
No, it
scared?
depends. It depends whether they are painful, fearful, not painful, fearful. It depends on individuals, their karma, their practice, just like even our state. In the same situation, some of people are more fearful, some of people are less fearful, even though we might be experiencing similar circumstances. Some people, so it depends on people's, just like that part of being also that, we cannot, it's not kind of what you call fix everyone experience same way, just as we don't experience same way. Part of beings also do not experience some can experience more pain than others. Someone can experience less pain than others. Some part of being can experience more fear when they have that kind of vision. Some of them might not see that vision at all, or even they see that vision, they don't get so fearful of that. And so therefore it's less painful because they don't have fear. So that no, it's not same experience for all the part of being, just as it's not same experience, but we, so that part. Secondly, in your questions, of course, there are so many, any virtuous action one can do, and dedicate for them, any good things you do, any virtuous thing you do, you sincerely dedicate whatever positive energy that you have created by doing that virtuous act, that virtuous things, dedicate for them to have less fear, less suffering in the part of in their transitions, and to have better rebirth, and better experience in the futures, and in terms of practice, there are so many different prayers, practices, but some easy ones, you can do the Om Mani Padme Hum, reciting that mantras, mantra of medicine Buddhas, Vasasatavas, the shorter, longer and shorter versions of mantras. So you can do those in terms of mantras. Some of they are known as 10 powerful mantras, but at least you can do those three. These are part of those mantras. And then there's one prayer known as King of Prayer that can be also very helpful, powerful. And again, that King of Prayer is coming from sutras, and it's a prayer made by one of the bodhisattvas, Samantabhadra, and he's known for his incredible dedication in prayer, and these are very powerful prayers. And so King of Prayers is known as King of Inspiration, it's inspiration prayer sometimes. So that can be helpful, beneficial. Yeah. And you can write your dog's name in our list here.
Yeah. So, yeah, Tessa, she passed away this morning. And it's interesting that you said that when you lose your consciousness when she was warm still, and then her nose started bleeding. And you're saying that's the time when she
Left.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone can add later now.
Who has the book?
The prayer list.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I'm coming, John, and yeah. Oceans, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. When you're in the Bardo,
Mhm.
are you interacting with other entities that are in the Bardo?
Yes. Yes.
That's a good question.
So it is part of being seeing each others,
Okay.
you know.
And what about like if I would be killed in an accident with my dog, would my dog's spirit be there as well?
The part of
Yeah.
yes, it's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And is it karma that determines the beings that are interacting together in the Bardo, do you think?
you know, of course, there is always karmic connection. It is only a matter of how strong karmic connection. We all have karmic connection in some way. You know, from Buddhist point of view, when you talk about countless lifetimes, it's hard to know that we don't have connections at a certain time, some level of connections. But of course, we have certain stronger connection with certain than others karmically. And so definitely, you know, when you have spent your life in a good or bad way, strongly in this life, whether it's your pet, whether it's your families, whether it's your friends, or your enemies, there's going to create a more stronger karmic connections, either positive way or negative way. And so definitely there is interactions between the part of themselves. And also, you know, part of beings can also try to interact with the people or others who are left here. So sometimes people say, you know, their spirit comes, spirit came, or they saw something. It could be part of beings, you know. Of course, not all the spirit are part of beings. You know, part of beings are one of those, among those different kind of spirit, you know, that is operating, and that is the part of being as one of those, you know. Of course, not all the spirit are the part of beings, but part of being is one of them. So also we learn not to be too attached to them. If we get too attached to them, again, you know, it makes them more harder to continue the next, you know, because of our strong attachment and everything, it kind of drags them to some extent. And so it's better to let it go so they can move freely, you know, without being pulled by that energy. Yes, Sarah?
In the Western way of thinking, there is it's kind of a cliche that people feel that at the point of death, they review their life very quickly, everything that happened. Is there anything like this thinking in the Tibetan Bardo realm?
I'm not aware of, you know, but definitely we do say, you know, at the time of death, you know, before the Bardo, as we are dying, because we are so close to death and we know we are dying. So automatically our mind goes, what I have done, and that all thoughts comes, and that's where sometimes people might feel guilt, regret, all that, bitter, resentments, all this can come because it's like going like backflash, it's like going backflash. You are remembering or being aware of what you did, good or bad, but I think a lot of time, naturally, our minds attract more negative. So we remember those negative more clearly than the positive, and so, and if we don't have tools, if someone has a meditation tool to deal with that, then even it comes, you can overcome that and not feel so guilt, remorse, so strong, unhealthy remorse, fear, resentment, anger, whatever, not allowing those emotions, But if we don't have the tools to deal with that, then sometimes those thoughts, emotion could arise and then can be painful. Yes.
Geshe, I was wondering, like, if somebody passes away, you're close to, and they say that you can get in touch with some of these monasteries, and they will do, for example, medicine Buddha for 49 days, something like that. Is that as beneficial as if you were to do it, or how does that go?
Well, if you want to do, you can do yourself, and you can also request others to do, you can do both, so definitely if you can do, you do, but also to request Sangha members or the teachers or others also can be helpful, so, but yeah, as I said, traditionally, there, and like, also people can go to FMT website and then you can request there. If you want to pay a donation, you can pay. If you cannot afford, you don't have to pay donations. But you can go to website and there is a prayer and where you can give and then they will share, and within the FMT there are different groups and sanghas who will do those prayers for them for 49 days. So there is also that the FMT Lama Sopa Rinpoche of giving that people opportunity to do that. Yeah. So I think we are coming to a close. So we are talking about that it can go up to 7 weeks, 49 days. And this is after 49 days, after the 7 week, after 49 days, for sure they will find a rebirth due to their karma. Again, I don't have experience. I'm not talking from my experience. I'm just talking from those sources from the earliest teachings, but so that is, so then in traditionally, we try to do prayers and practice for 49 days, for someone who has passed away, so. And then, in the scripture, they talk about, how how they look like, what color they have, what are the size of the Bardo they talk about. If the Bardo is animal Bardo, human Bardo, other than Bardo, they have different size, different color, different, the way they walk is slightly different. And so I don't think we need, there is a lot of information on that, So, but I don't know. I think those we don't need to go, uh, uh, even time is there. And in here it says, like for example, part of being who is going to be born in a human in these realms in our world, then it is like in the commentary on Abhidharma Kosha, it is explained as that it will be similar like 5-6-year-old child. But then the author here says it's not definitive that way. Even though in that commentary it's not always definitive. The size can be slightly different. It's not always that size. Similar size.
Well, how do these beings communicate with each other?
I think they have walkie-talkies. They have better system than us. They don't need the technology to communicate.
Well, if somebody who lives in the Andromeda galaxy dies the same time I do, and we're in the Bardo together, how would we possibly communicate? Or would we not? Nobody knows, I guess, right?
I would think they will be able to communicate. I don't know what form of communications, whether there is a language, spoken language, sign language, or through mentally, emotionally. There's no clarity. I don't know. So, yeah. Okay, so I think that is all.
Your last chance for questions.
Any questions? Again, as I said, I don't have all the answer, but I can try.
Another question.
Yes, please.
So you were talking about, I think you're talking about on this planet, a birth can be through a womb or egg or heat or magic.
I don't know. Magic is in Tibetan is Zuke. Zu means miracles, kind of miracles.
So how would that be? Somebody just appears as an adult and comes into town and they just kind of.
No. I mean, in human form, I don't know. Of course, even in human form, there's they say in some stories they say, Pema Sambhava, Guru Rinpoche was miraculously born. He born from the lotus.
From the lotus, lotus comes out of the lake one day.
So that is what they say, but I don't know. That is I cannot. But here, the miracle here we are talking about is part of beings, not the human beings, the part of beings.
Okay, yeah, it's different there.
Yeah, we are not talking about the miracle human beings. We are talking about there are 4 kinds of birth one can have, and
from the Bardo to the next.
Yeah, from also human beings to Bardo, when they have Bardo, when they are born as a Bardo being, the Bardo being are not born from any of other trees, but it is more like the magical birth.
Thank you.
Yeah, whether animal die and they are Bardo, become a Bardo, or human being dies and they have the Bardo beings, and that Bardo being is not born from the mother's womb, is not born from the eggs or the heat, but they are born miraculously. That is what that was saying. Yeah. So we are talking more of that. Yeah. Even they say, even though it's possible, even in human beings, there can be a miracle birth. But again, I don't know for sure. And nor I can reject completely because there are so many things I don't know. Or there are so many possibilities that I don't know. I cannot say is absolutely possible, nor I can say is absolutely not possible. You know?
And then there's the fairy realm. On Earth, there's a fairy realm.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Then we can do the dedications.
I think somebody has the book over there.
You had proof for the fairy realm?
And,
Not directly.
and so for people going through obstacles, Diana L, Britt, Mary Jo, Rob Newton, Jana, Matt. People who are going through illness, Rob N, Andy L, Joe W, Mary G, Astrid, Sarah, Dana. People who have gone through death in the last 49 days, Robert Redford, Charlie Kirk, Mice, Squirrel, Dorothy, Lucky the dog, and Tessa the dog.
And may I add a death? David Elliott Sunday died.
Davidson. We cannot hear clearly.
David Elliott, who died on
David
Sunday.
Elliott, who died Sunday.
Thank you.
David Elliott. Someone who died recently. On Sunday.
David Elliott. Elliott?
Yes.
David Elliott. David Elliott. Okay. I don't know.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, like that. Sorry. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And so the dedication prayers. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions,
may I quickly attain the state of Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has known others and others alone, may act just not to diminish, but increase more and more.
for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish granting
Wish fulfilling jewels, those of every single man in this world. To the incomparable unintenting counsel, exist, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled.
and for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, fearless teacher and his own victorious
sons, along with the religious masters, all the officers of refuge and connected acts. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing with prayer here and now. Hoping and spreading the knowledge, practice, complete teaching, through explanation and practice. Give over the number of patience, guide members of courage, incomparable venerable Guru, to you and request. Strongly single pointedly for the sake of victorious one's teachings, the soul gave way to look with all benefit and habits emerge. As from the living beings, you certainly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, the unmistakable truth of the blessing of the ocean of village jewels, and the great weight of the bodhicitta children of victory everyone. Will definitely make partnerships with maybe the world of perfection and disciples. Yeah, I have a friend, a Buddhist friend. and just a normal, families. And she said, now he said he forgot, but when he was young, he remembered his previous life so clearly. He recognized people, and he said he doesn't remember, but like when he was very young, he told his father. He described even all the part of. He remembered even the part of very clearly. He described all the part of what happened in the part of. Of course, he says as like a lot of people who remember as they get older, they seem to lose their memories slowly, but they seem to remember until they're maybe 11, 12, and then after that they started to kind of. And he was saying story, when he was very young, even before he can talk, he saw his previous daughter passing by. And of course, he cannot talk, but he saw him and he was trying to communicate. And he felt like she ignored him. Because of course, she didn't communicate, she didn't say, she didn't respond, nor he could even say, and they know, there was it's kind of. So his memory is very vivid. Some people have very vivid, some people are less vivid. And not only vivid, he recognized from previous, brothers, and one wearing glass, one not wearing glass. They even to check him, they even change it, and they couldn't pull him. He recognized who is who and who's not there. So there are many people who have that kind of, experience and memories, and this friend now who lives in Australia with his family, and because of that, he's very spiritual, even though has normal family life, but his mind is very strong and spiritual. He always had that and influence from the past, and he has such a strong memory of his past.
For me, the notion of past life, that's kind of a separate discussion from the discussion of the Bardo.
Yeah.
They're part of the same thing, but.
Yeah, I'm also describing that he remembered the Bardo very clearly too.
Oh, you remember the Bardo too.
Yeah.
I wish we could hear what he had to say about it.
No, he said he doesn't remember now so clearly, but he said when he was young, very small, still memory was so clear. He told his father that all the descriptions, and later his father told him that is how you describe when you were young.
Too bad they didn't write it down.
Yeah, I guess not.
There are a lot of these stories on YouTube. People can revisit past lives, past acquaintances, and so forth.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.